The sun has set on another national championship season, and High Seas has brought us perhaps the best meta that we have ever experienced. High Seas, the new set released, of course, with Pirates, coupled with the bans that came right before this Nationals season really kicked off, meant that we have entered into the golden age of Flesh and Blood. I know that's been used before, it's hyperbolic, but let's be honest. Looking at the data over the past 3+ weeks, it's hard to argue that this is not the best meta that we've experienced. So let's talk about the results from this week, starting with the National Championship in Australia, where Justin Lim picked it up on Kasai of the Golden Sand. That's right, just narrowly edging out a very, very tight game against Nick Butcher on Syndra Drakai of Retribution. Alongside of the two of them, we had Verdance, Thorn of the Rose, Arachne, Slip Through the Cracks, Victor Goldmain, Verdance again, Levia, and Acilio. Yes, that's right, Levia shows up, and it's not the only time we're going to be talking about Levia this weekend. It's that kind of meta where Levia even shows up. But just keep in mind, we've been talking about a few names over the course of this meta game as it has unfolded over 3 weeks. We've been talking about the linchpin of the meta, the genesis of the meta in the form of Gravy Bones, followed by how you answer that deck with Syndra, with Dash.io, and with specifically Arachne Slip Through the Cracks, alongside of some other heroes like Prism and Kasai, and some answers to those decks in the form of things like Victor, and even possibly going back to Florian. So keep that in mind as we go. Here we have National Championship Australia. Like I said, Kasai picks up the win. But over in Greece, it's a little different, with Kano picking up the win against Bravo Showstopper. Jarl Vitrathi shows up, Syndra again shows up, Ira makes an appearance, Arachne makes an appearance, Dio makes an appearance, and Arachne Slip Through the Cracks make an appearance in the top 8 as well. But Kano gets another couple of points towards that Living Legend status, and he's not the only hero, the only OG hero that got points this weekend, because there's a storyline or two we can talk about as we will go. Putting Tam over in Hong Kong wins on Syndra, Drakai of Retribution. This was streamed. In fact, multiple of these games were streamed over the weekend. I would probably argue that this might have also been the best weekend for Flesh and Blood wall-to-wall coverage. If you wanted to watch Flesh and Blood at some point over this weekend, there were like 3 or 4 streams you could have had up. This was the perfect weekend for NFL Game Day in the form of like Flesh and Blood Game Day. We could have done that, someone could have done that, and it would have been very, very compelling because you could have bounced back and forth between a bunch of different streams. But like I said, Putting Tam wins on Syndra against Florian. Prism was in there, Dash.io was in there, Dorinthia was in there. That's one that is definitely worth talking about going forward. There was a fantastic game, Dorinthia versus Gravy, in the semifinals that we're going to talk about here in a minute. That you should go back and watch. I believe it was at Japan. Syndra was also there at like the sort of the 5th place finish, because these quarterfinals is kind of how you break it down. That was Nova-chan, alongside of Arachne and Arachne, the 2 flavors of Arachne, because there's only 2 Arachnes, right? There's not a third one, right? There's not 3 Arachnes, I don't think. Over in Hungary, Florian Rotwood Harbinger picks up a win, and this is what we were talking about. Florian could be the answer to the answers of that Gravy Bones deck. So like, you need an answer? Well, you pick one of like Syndra or Dio, or you pick Arachne Slip Through the Cracks. Well, if you want to answer those, maybe you start going back to some of these other heroes, and Florian takes the day there. But this was an interesting one because look, Puffin showed up, Gravy Bones there at the bottom, Kasai was there, Azalea was there, Riptide even made a cut into it. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty fun top 8. Italy was a pretty fun one as well. This was streamed as well. I believe this was streamed. I caught most of it. Victor Goldmain High and Mighty won the day against Syndra Drakai of Retribution, alongside of more of what you've expected. Arachne Slip Through the Cracks. Kasai, again, I think she really started to show up this last weekend of the national season, alongside of Jarl trying to answer Syndra and some of the other more redline heroes like Arachne Slip Through the Cracks. Over in Japan, we had Arachne Slip Through the Cracks winning against Dash.io. There was also Acilio, Dorinthia, and Gravy Bones as well. Now, this was the Dory Gravy Bones matchup. That was a fun one to watch. I highly recommend you go back and watch that one. In fact, if I'm remembering this correctly, it was either this game or it was one of the other nationals. I'm pretty sure it was this one, but I do believe that Gravy Bones ended up winning. So maybe I am mistaking this for another series, or maybe that was this matchup. I think it was actually that matchup. It was the Yuto Suzuki matchup versus Masaru Sasaki. Either way, it was a fantastic watch, so go back to that stream and check that one out. I'll see if I can post that down in a comment below or in the description so that you can go check that one out. But if you're a big Gravy Bones fan, that's a very cursed matchup for Gravy Bones, and that was very well piloted by Sasaki. Either way, Syndra is also there alongside of another Dorinthia and Florian as well. Continuing down, and there's a lot of these. Malaysia, Azalea ace in the hole. One of the 2 Azalea wins on this weekend. And funnily enough, Azalea got just enough points to be 1 point off hitting Living Legend status. So when this goes official, Azalea will be at 999 Living Legend points. That's crazy. That's crazy. I was rooting for her to make it to the finish line. I thought that would be really fun. And she wouldn't have been the only hero to make it to the finish line this weekend. But I was really hoping that she did cross it, because that would be a great story, right? She is like, I think, the poster child for a hero that people are rooting for. They start off as a really underpowered underdog. They get strong, but not so oppressive that everybody absolutely hates them. And then they continue to be just decent enough to gain points until they cross the finish line. She's a great story, and one that I thought would be a great highlight for this weekend, but this apparently was not her weekend. She's not going to cross the finish line, unlike another hero we will talk about. But in Malaysia, does pick up the win, at least there. Arachne slipped through the cracks, wins it in Mexico in what was a literal 2-hour game. This went down to Gravy Bones with 3 cards in circulation, to Arachne with a very small amount of cards left in deck, and like 2 blues and a chum in deck for Gravy Bones. I mean, it was a movie. It had shades of Pro Tour 3, the Michael Fang game, playing against the super grindy Dromai on Oldham. That's what I thought of when this game was going on. At one point I tuned out, and then I tuned back in, and the game was still going, and I was like, wow, this was a long one. So it was a crazy game to go watch back, but congratulations for picking up the win. Arachne slipped through the cracks, gets some more points there, but yeah, there was a puffin indeed there. Fang did lose to this Gravy Bones deck, which is pretty cool. And then there was also a Prism, Ira, and Dorinthia, along with a Florian lurking around there in the top 8. The Philippines was the other win for Azalea. Again, because of the way that the point totals break down, Azalea, with that 1.5x modifier, only needed like 1 more point to cross the finish line. And it would have come had one of these 2 events had a few more players. I can't remember if it was the Philippines that had needed more players, or if it was the Malaysia National Championship that needed more players. But one of them was like 80 players, and the other one was like 93. And the cap was literally 80 players for X amount of points. And if it had gone up to the higher bracket, she would have crossed the finish line. But Azalea does pick up the win. Gravy Bones in 2nd, Kano in 3rd, Acilio in 4th, KO in 5th, Arachne slipped through the cracks, then Gravy Bones again, then KO again. Like, are you looking at the names on these top 8s? There are so many different heroes that are making top 8s across the board. I think it's crazy. Verdance wins in Poland next to Jarl and Dorinthia and Syndra, alongside of Arachne slipped through the cracks ×2, another Verdance and Prism. This one was also streamed. I did believe I caught, I think I caught the tail end of this one. And it was like, the game started, they had like 40 against 40, and then I scrolled through and caught the tail end when it was live, and it was like Jarl was at like 2, or like died on 1 turn because of like the triple why did I blank on the name? Literally blanked on the name. the stupid instant that gives you all the health back. Oh, I played this hero for a good bit. I forgot the name. Rampant Growth Life. Thank you for those that put it in the comments already. It's Rampant Growth Life. Yep, triple that is pretty good and wins you the national championship for Poland. Portugal. Syndra picks it up against Azalea. Look at this. If Azalea had picked this one up, it would have been game over for her. Alas, it wasn't her day because it was the day in Spain for Dash, Inventor Extraordinaire. I was there for this game versus Vincent, Iron Maiden, and Dash took home the win, doing the thing that if you played back in 2021 and maybe even 2020, Dash was known for. Long games, fatigue states, building a board of items and winning with very large pistol shots while you rapidly run out of cards in deck. That's what she was known for the longest time, this switchboard style list that leaned heavily into the control side, and that it's so poetic that is what carried her over the finish line. It's poetic, it rhymes, you understand. Dash Inventor Extraordinaire now officially hitting the Living Legend status when you're watching this video. At some point today, she will have been announced to have crossed the finish line, and then on Friday, I believe she will be no more and only playable in the Living Legend format, which there were some last chance qualifiers that were run this, I guess it was like Worlds qualifier, something like that. I forget what they call it, but there were a couple of those, and I think one of them was Living Legend. So now Dash going to be relegated to that format. And finally, in Sweden, Syndra picks up another win, this time versus Arachne Marionette, who on the 3 weeks, I believe, only picked up one win across all nationals represented. But alongside of Arachne, there was Acilio and Verdance and Azalea and Verdance again and Prism, and Arachne slipped through the cracks. So calculating it all up, what are the final numbers for this third week? Well, here's what we have. We have this pie chart, and you can compare this pie chart to what we saw last week, which was a much more simple pie chart because there were so many more events this past weekend. I mean, there were a ton of wins if we're looking at it. Syndra picked up 3. The top point getter this week was Arachne, slipped through the cracks, picking up 4 wins, and then a smattering of Azalea picking up 2, Acilio picking up 2, and then all of these hero, Dash, Dash.io, Florian, Kano, Kasai, Lavia picked up a win. I don't think we showed that one. Did we show Lavia picking up the... Hold on, let me see if I can find that really quick. My mistake, I don't even know why I didn't have this one up. Lavia picked up the win in Latvia. Lavia Shadowborn Abomination actually won an event, which is crazy. Won against Fang, alongside of Ira, KO, Prism, 2 Gravy Bones, and Katsu. That's a breakdown right there. Can you believe it? Look at that. But Lavia indeed does pick up a win. And yep, there's Lavia represented right there alongside of Prism and Verdance and Victor. Do keep in mind, 0 Gravy Bones wins on this weekend, and that is a big deal. But that is your pie chart breakdown of all the wins. Now, what does it look like if we stacked up all the heroes next to each other? Major props to my good buddy Dylan over at TCG Talk for putting this spreadsheet together. This is data he compiled from all of these wonderful click tiles here represented on the national championship coverage. But yeah, this was all compiled by him, and Syndra picks up 8 wins next to Slippy, who picks up 8 wins. If we're looking at top 8s, top finals, and top 4s, you can see Syndra, the sort of de facto deck to beat as far as aggression is concerned. Slippy, though, doing quite well once in the actual finals, picking up a lot of nice wins there as well. In 9 finals, won 8 of the 9 that they were actually in, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Gravy Bones behind the 2 of them, alongside of Prism and Verdance at 4 wins apiece. Azalea with 3, Dash.io with 3 as well. Kano with 2 alongside Arachne Marionette, and Acilio with 2, and then a smattering of 1s with Dash.ie, Florian, Kasai, Katsu, Lavia, Victor, and Vincent all picking up 1. And then a bunch of other heroes in top 4s and top 8s as well. But I just do want to say this. Check this out. This is the other kind of crazy thing I noticed. If we were to take all of the data of all the games that were played at all the nationals and compile them onto a website, thus far, this is what Fablazing has done. They have taken all the national championships in paper, in Classic Constructed, and here's the win rates. of the heroes. Heroes that we've been talking a lot about. Arachne and Dash.io are the heroes that I have called out as being heroes I think you should have your eye on, and heroes that really answer the call of the meta, and they sit at the top of the overall win percentages. Now, of course, this is in paper, and it is results from nationals. And Arachne slipped through the cracks at a 57.8% win rate, has the highest win rate across all nationals combined across all events, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty good to know. Dash.io sitting at 56%, and all the way down here is Syndra. The bad matchups represented here being against Arachne slipped through the cracks and Dash.io, who are again sitting at the top of the leaderboard. So there's a little bit of explanation perhaps as to why so many of these like heroes at the top right here are doing pretty well, because they did well perhaps into decks like Syndra, who are going to be heavily represented. I mean, this is literally almost 2,000 games played from Syndra in paper in these nationals. I mean, it's 1,968 matches that are recorded, and this is the win percentage spread. Doing well against Verdance, doing well against Florian, doing well against who is this? Arachne Marionette, and then doing very well against Gravy Bones, sort of the answer there. And then a bunch of positive win rate matchups over here as we get further down on the side of the page. But the ones you're looking at are where are the negative win rates. Arachne slipped through the cracks. It's Dash.io. It's your new, which is no longer a matchup you have to worry about, which is why Syndra kind of came back out to play. Dorinthia, not a good matchup, showing as a 38% win rate there as well. She's the hero that won the most, but she clearly has a lot of targetability. She has a target painted on her back, and it's easy to see that target from far away. There are heroes that can answer the call that she provides, and that's a pretty cool thing to see. So I would recommend you look over this data, take a look at what you're going to be facing going out of this meta, because it's not going to change too terribly much. There are no bans. There are no restrictions going forward. This sort of leaves this national season with this information, and it's going to continue going forward until we get Guardian Mastery Pack, the Ira Scarlet Revenger Armory deck. Those are the things that are going to maybe move the needle a little bit, but how much will it even move the needle? Like, how powerful will the cards coming out of the Ira deck going to actually be? Is it going to really shift any of these matchups that are really weak for Ira? I mean, you got a 16% win rate into Verdance. I'm not sure that's going to move the needle very much if Verdance continues to be well represented. So all this to say, this could be the meta that we're living in going forward, and it's not a bad meta to be in. This is a pretty solid meta overall. I'd love to hear your thoughts in a comment below, and if you like these recap videos after a weekend full of flesh and blood, of course, make the number go to the other number. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.